All right, everyone, welcome to today's workshop. This is Carrie here, really excited to dig into this topic with you guys. It's something that's been on my heart for a while. And so I'm just in little ways, I could see it taking shape. So I'm really excited to share some of the things that I've learned over the years and just some things that God has shown me as well. So today we're going to be talking about a simple and sustainable wellness-based lifestyle, because I think what really kind of spurred this on was the fact that have seen a lot of, different posts, or you maybe just heard, others talk about how it can seem really complicated to be a little bit more natural or be a little bit more holistic. And I've just seen others just share, like, basically, like, I can't do it anymore. This is a little bit too overwhelming. Like, I need to take a step back and or either just, go back to the way things were, let's say. So it's just really made me think about how, honestly, I believe that this is a scheme of the enemy, and I'll kind of share a little bit more about that later. But I wanted to just first speak to the way that I feel like this is definitely a culture thing. Culture has kind of taught us these things, if you will, and sort of some of the things that I've gathered. And so just speaking to the first part of this simple and sustainable thought that I have is basically, I actually was just talking to someone a couple of weeks ago, and her words were, "I don't even know what to eat anymore. I'm so confused. Why is this so difficult?" I thought, well, you pretty much just said what a lot of people are thinking, unfortunately. And we've really made our body seem so complicated, and people don't even know what to eat anymore. And why do we feel the need to have like all these lists of things that are good and bad, and things that we should eat and things that we shouldn't eat? I think that really makes me think of legalistic thinking. That kind of goes back to talking about different things in the Bible that tell us that we really shouldn't be legalistic in our thinking, but a lot of people used to in biblical times, and it really didn't turn out very well. And that makes me think of how we've become legalistic in some of these rules that we have around this wellness-based lifestyle. So instead of thinking about how we need to have a set of rules, and feeling like we always need to have that, I'm going to hopefully help you to see that that really doesn't create lasting change. If you think about a pendulum swinging, it swings from one side to the other, right? And it finally kind of goes and settles in the middle. Well, whenever we feel like we need to swing it so far one way, right? We have this really strict, set of rules that we need to follow. Whenever we can't hold that up, it kind of just swings the other way, right? But just like whenever you swing, I'm just trying to think about like a weight on the end of a string. As hard as you swing it one way, it's going to swing equally almost as hard in the other direction. So that really is what I see happening whenever we just go all in and have these really, really rigid rules in certain areas. And so basically that makes it really not sustainable because it's so drastic that it's not sustainable. We can do it for a short period of time, but long term, it really can be emotionally damaging as well. And it can also become all encompassing because we're like so obsessed with we have to follow X, Y, and Z rules. And so I think that definitely speaks into how having this type of lifestyle has seemed really out of reach, really overwhelming to some, maybe not all, but I think in little ways, it's definitely seemed like that for me in the past. Speaking to maybe more of the sustainability, there's a lot of gadgets and there's a lot of supplements and a lot of different accessories and things that we could purchase that are marketed towards this is going to help X, Y, and Z issue that you might have, or just like wellness tools. Like there's so many different ones now. I feel like way more than when I started, kind of getting into learning more about this, about 10 to 15 years ago. There's just a ton more. And so I think that definitely plays into the simplicity of things and the sustainability of things, because if we think we need all the gadgets before we're going to like be at a destination or something, that's not really sustainable. Maybe it is for some, but I think, most of us have a budget that we really need to stick to. So that kind of makes it seem out of reach for a lot of people, which I think is not true. But we can often fall under that way of thinking. So it just makes me think, if there's a secret to a simple and sustainable wellness-based lifestyle, I really think it has to be evaluation. I think we have to evaluate some things before we can really create for us the right, sort of game plan, if you will, in moving forward. So like evaluate, where are you at currently? This really is made even harder to evaluate where we are currently, because we look at people online or follow people that maybe they're on chapter 20, but we're on chapter 2, and we feel like we want to like skip a bunch of chapters and be on chapter 20 with them, and it just doesn't work. So evaluate, where are you currently, and not like where do you want to be, maybe where are you at, not where you're at in your mind, but where you actually at physically, emotionally, like all those things. So that's number one thing you need to evaluate. Number two are your motives. Like, why do you want to, make some of these changes? Is it just for outward appearances? Is it, there's so many different reasons. I'm not going to go into all those, but I think our motives do matter. Is this something that you want to use? I guess as a Christian, I should say, I'm always kind of, checking my motives and my intentions, because I think they really can lead us in the wrong direction a lot of the times if we don't have the right motive. And so I would encourage you to think, what are your motives? Do you want to use the extra energy or the extra focus or whatever you might want to get for the Lord's work? Or is it just for, vanity type of reasons or whatnot? So look at your motives. What is your biggest pain point? A lot of times it's like we want everything to change really quickly, right? That we don't really take into consideration doing things in a stepwise approach either. And so if we have this all or nothing mentality, a lot of times we just throw in the towel because like we can't sustain this. This is too complicated. It's too much at one time. So really looking at what is your biggest pain point. If it's physical, if we're talking about kind of wellness here, a lot of times we do have some physical symptoms. Like, what is your biggest pain point and how could you address that in a more natural way first, and then kind of build on that, right? We all have to have a starting point. Maybe you are on a further chapter in this kind of whole thing, but maybe you need to take it back to the basics if you're feeling overwhelmed by everything, and just really look at things clearly and starting, kind of what is my main goal here? What is my main pain point might be a great place to start. Also, we have expectations. That's an interesting word these days. It's like everybody has instant mentality, right? We want the Amazon Prime shipping on everything, and I'm definitely guilty about that. We are just spoiled, and so there's no other way to put it. And so I think our expectations are kind of skewed because of that. And so if this is going to be something that is going to be sustainable, especially if we're speaking to that part of it, I think our expectations have to be kind of evaluated. So recap, we have evaluate where you are currently. What are your motives? What's your biggest pain point? What are your expectations? And then lastly, what is your budget? Because budget reasons probably are the biggest reason why people, go back to the way they were originally doing it, or think this isn't for them, or, fill in the blank. Let's be honest. A lot of times whenever something is marketed as natural, it is more expensive in general. I'm speaking in general terms, but I want to encourage you I'm going to give you some different ideas, different ways of thinking, some tools, if you will, to make your goal of living a more natural, wellness-based lifestyle doable. I truly believe that it is doable for every budget. You just have to make sure that you're being really intentional with where you're spending your money outside this, wellness-based lifestyle and inside. I think that's really important. And a lot of times people don't even know what their budget is. So that's why I'm saying you need to evaluate that first before you can kind of see, how am I going to divvy up this budget to make it really sustainable? Because if you're moving toward better health, it's not going to happen overnight. Now, you might see improvements over time, but it's just kind of something also that doesn't really have an end. Now, there are things that will have a beginning and end within that that journey, I guess, if you will. But it's not like I'm sitting here in my mind thinking, well, I'm just going to do all these things for a year, and then I'm just going to not do any of them, right? I mean, I'm just going to keep doing some of these healthy habits because it just helps me to show up my best every day. So that's, hopefully that can kind of give you a place to start. And from there, I want to kind of dig into some of the most overwhelming areas, I believe, in a wellness-based lifestyle. We're going to talk about diet. We're going to talk about supplements. We're going to talk about toxins, and we're going to talk about exercise. So you can let me know if you're on live or if you're watching the recording, even if you feel like there's another area that you get really overwhelmed by. But those were the ones that I see the most, and that I feel like are probably, the biggest, most overwhelming. Of course, there are different subcategories in those, but so first let's talk about diet. I kind of opened up with, it's very common to feel super overwhelmed with what to eat, because I just feel like we've made it way too complicated. So I'm going to take it back to a more simplistic level. At the most simplistic level, a conventional non-organic apple is still more nutritious than an organic gluten-free cookie. I do believe that marketing has made it really seemingly complicated on what do I actually eat and what is actually good for me, But let's think logically. Before we had all of these conventionally processed things, we did eat mostly whole foods, and people were a lot probably more healthier than they are now. So just taking it back to that really simplistic approach, if you're getting overwhelmed, just simply eating things that are less processed is always going to be your best bet. Because I think now we've been we kind of succumb to the mentality of, well, if we can't have the organic, pastured, free range, et cetera, like all these different names we put on things, then we're just not going to do it. But let me remind you that eating lower quality whole food is still better than processed, far better actually, because it has a lot of nutrients there are a lot of nutrients in whole foods. While organic is an excellent choice for a lot of different reasons, right? We don't want extra pesticides coming in if we don't have to have them. But if you're struggling to live within your means, it can feel really overwhelming to feel like you have to buy everything organic and all the meat has to be pastured and there's just so many things. Do your best to prioritize real food over processed food. It still has incredible nutrients, even if the source could be better. I think we have to just, take it to those simplistic terms to really feel less overwhelmed about things and make it more sustainable for our budget, because there will be some times that you could purchase, better quality. And then there's be sometimes that maybe you just don't have access to it or you don't have the funds for it, but just feel really good about that you're still nourishing your body with these great nutrients, even if the source could be better. So just some other things that I thought about, and maybe, I don't know why I've always tended to do this, but I'm just a really big stickler about use what you have. For instance, if I have a whole chicken that I'm going to cook, I'm going to eat all the meat, obviously, in different ways. Maybe I'm thinking about chicken that I cooked last week. I made an extra meal out of it, we ate at that meal, and then I made a stir fry out of it for me, and the kids kept eating it, just kind of broke it up on their plate. And then I also made chicken salad. I don't like to throw away food. It's one of my pet peeves. So maybe you need to make it one of yours. I don't know. But just getting into that thinking of how can I utilize everything I have. And also I'm going to be making stock out of the bones. So that's one thing that you could think about. How can you, if you're going to invest in really good quality meat to what your budget allows, then make it last. So make some stock out of the bones and buy meat on the bone so that you can use the bone for stock. That's another little tip for you. But just try not to throw away food. A lot of things can be frozen and used later. So just, you can always Google, can X, Y, and Z be frozen? I freeze up, I try to use it up if I can't within a certain amount of time. It's going to go bad, I'll put it in the freezer, and then I'll try to make use out of it some other way. So just try to get creative with those things. And some people are just better at it than others. I feel like that's a gift that God gave me for whatever reason, but I just love to figure out how I can use all these things. But that is something that I feel like we should think more of. And then also prioritize what you buy wisely. So these are things like, if you're going to buy organic, look at the clean 15 and dirty dozen list so that you can see which foods are better to buy organic and which foods does it not matter as much. They're not sprayed with as many pesticides, so it wouldn't matter as much if you got organic. Go by that list and buy what you can that is on the dirty dozen, and then just forget about the rest. And of course, there are ways that we can try to soak our produce or whatnot in different mixtures to take off some of those chemicals. There's a lot of things you can do there too. There also are some foods that are worth splurging on more than others. So I'm thinking things like dairy. The quality of dairy really matters. And so just think about how you could get organic dairy if you're going to buy dairy, if you could get raw. Those are just some things to think about, and foods kind of worth splurging on. Another would be things like chicken, turkey, and pork. They tend to store more unstable fats in their tissues because they aren't grazers, as in they aren't cow. That they don't graze in the field. So that's something that you might want to think about. Obviously, thin skin produce, if you buy that non-organic, it could leach into some of the fruit inside or some of the meat inside. Fattier cuts of beef. So that might be something that you want to think about. If you're going to get a really great cut of beef, try to get it, the best quality that you can. And then grains are another thing that might be worth splurging on, because they can really have and contain a higher source of pests, or they can be a higher source of pesticides. So, things like rice. I usually always try to buy organic rice. Rice is not very expensive, and organic is just a little bit more. So I just try to prioritize, buying that organic. So just try to think in your mind, what's going to be best for me to spend my money on. So those are just some ideas for you. So that's a little bit on diet. Now I'm going to move to supplements. And we are sort of supplement crazy in our current world. I'm not saying supplements are bad. I definitely utilize supplements. I truly believe that the quality of our food is different than it used to be. Our lifestyles are different, etc. We really can't typically get all that we need from food as far as nutrients go. So we probably are going to have to supplement. However, I don't think it's a great idea to get on a supplement just because you heard somebody talking about it and not have maybe a time frame on that, or even know why you're taking it, right? Let's maybe put a little bit more intention into that, and don't just, pop all these pills and think we're good. I think maybe that mentality, it's just faster, right? I won't say faster. It's easier. It's easier to pop a pill than to maybe be more intentional about getting X, Y, and Z nutrient in your food. Let's just be honest. I mean, I get that. And of course, supplements are probably a lot better than taking prescription medications for different things. So I understand that argument. I'm just simply saying that we can spend a lot on supplements. And so maybe just reprioritizing what we do spend our money on would be a really great step in the right direction as far as simplicity and sustainability. And then another thing that I feel like is really, important to think about is, how do you actually know what you need unless you do some kind of testing? So I do hair tests, I do blood work to see exactly what my clients need to be on, and myself, I do that on myself as well, so that I can have a really good picture for them. Like, you're probably going to need to be on this supplement for this length of time. Now, some are sort of have more of a time frame than others, but yet I do feel like that's really important in the whole grand scheme of things. So that's all I'll say about supplements, but I do feel like they could easily be one of the more expensive items on our budget, but sometimes they don't have to be. So that's supplements. So next we're going to go to toxins. Toxin exposure is what I'm meaning here. And this is something that I do see a lot of people sharing about how it's just way overwhelming, and they're just gonna, step away because they can't cut them all out, or it's just way too overwhelming. So the thing is, you can go crazy trying to cut out all the toxins from your life, but it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're never going to cut them all out. So, we have to just do the best we can. However, we don't need to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, it does matter that we try to cut down on some of these exposures, because toxicity leads to deficiency, which is a whole nother, thing that we deal with, is deficiencies. And so I really love this analogy that an Instagram account I follow called Just Ingredients. You guys probably know her, and you might have seen me share about it, but I just wanted to read it really quick because I thought it really spoke to this. So she said her response to somebody that asked, like, how important are toxins to cut out? This was her response in the form of an analogy. She said, your car drives through dirt, mud, rain, exhaust, dust, potholes, bumps, and more every day. There's nothing you can do to avoid some of those, but don't ever swerve around the pothole. Don't ever dodge the puddle. Don't ever get your car washed. Don't ever do any maintenance on it. Like, that would be considered kind of ridiculous, but does nothing, because your car will just drive through some more of those every day. So to have your car run at optimal capacity, you have to take care of it. And so if you never dodged any potholes or changed the filters or did maintenance, those are just there's gonna be some huge repairs and bills down the road. She said the same is true with your body. You have to have your body run at its optimal capacity. You have to take care of it. If you never dodged some of those toxins or did maintenance on your body, let's say, those are going to be some huge issues that kind of start to snowball down the road. So it's not an all or nothing mentality, and I couldn't have said it better myself, obviously. It's really going to be in your best interest to dodge the toxins you personally can to help your body out as best you can. So I just wanted to share that because it definitely sums up things in a really great way. Now, I just wanted to share while we're on this topic what I have done over the past. And I have definitely fallen into times where I've gotten more obsessive about it and times where I, haven't been as obsessive about it, I guess you could say. So I've been there, done that kind of mentality. But the thing that I have experienced that has helped me the most is simply having a small set of essential oils to help replace things around my home. So these are things like candles or cleaners. Like, there's a lot of other things that you could think about here, replacing personal care products, etc. This is really something that's helped me to be able to have this core set of oils and have it be very multi-use. So it helps me make the most out of my purchase that I made. And the fact that you don't have to use a whole lot with every application makes it really sustainable in the long run. Also, the simplicity of getting a lot of these products from one company that I trust this quality and standards of, I think that's an important thing that you have to look at, but it's made it really simple. It's also saved me money on shipping and things like that. And so I just wanted to mention that because I feel like that is one thing that's made it super easy for me, simple and sustainable. It's made it both of those when I think about my toxin exposure. Now, of course, you could think about toxin exposure, with air and with water and things like that. But I'm specifically probably talking about things more in the home, personal care, things in, on, and around me. This has really helped me a ton. So also, it's very adaptable to whatever budget you have. So if you can just have one high quality oil and use it in 30 different ways, just start there, and don't feel like you have to get every oil, because that's certainly not the case. I started with the core 10 and I still use those a ton. And I do a lot in this area and to help people with this. So if you ever need any help, please let me know. So that is the third area. So we did diet, supplements, toxins, and now lastly, we're going to talk about exercise. Just for a second, because I'm not an exercise specialist. However, I do think in our modern day, we feel like we either need to go to CrossFit for an hour or we need to do nothing, because there's no middle ground there, because a 10-minute walk is just pointless and we might as well just not do anything. Some people might feel that way. I certainly don't. I feel like a 10-minute walk is definitely worth something. So let me get back over here. Sorry, guys. I got a phone call. So I promise you a 10-minute walk is worth something. Try to plan something that is doable. If you're thinking about, let me back up just a minute. If you're thinking about a workout plan, because we need to prioritize movement. I'm not saying we need to go to the gym X amount of days. I'm just saying you have to evaluate where you are. This kind of goes back to that. And we need to try to plan something that is doable and that sounds way too easy. So that whenever we do complete this, whether it is a 10-minute walk one time a week, I don't know where you are, but I'm just saying, if you're not doing anything right now, that would be an improvement. And so whenever we do, or we are consistent with that, it builds confidence. So I just think that's the best thing. That's the best advice I can give you in how to approach exercise with simplicity and with sustainability. And so we all have different seasons in our life. We all have different needs, like that we have to take care of, like kids and work and, church and whatever it might be. So just having something that we can be consistent with, whatever our season is going to be really important. So I hope that this helps you to see how you can live a wellness-based lifestyle that is as simple as it can be, and it's as sustainable as it can be, because that's really what my goal is. I like to simplify things because I don't like to make things too complicated. I'm not saying I've never made things complicated, but I try not to. But I do hope this stirs you up to ponder what this could look like practically for you, because I know that the enemy is very active in all aspects of our lives, but I do think that if we have the right motive in doing things for the Lord, he's going to try to bring something in that's going to stop that. And so the enemy does come to steal, kill, and destroy, and he does it in really subtle ways. And so making something seem really overwhelming or really complicated is a great tactic of his. And so I wanted to give you some truth here about how simple and sustainable this could look. So I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it and got something out of it. And if you feel like, you have a friend or a family member that struggles with this and just struggles kind of with that all or nothing mentality, and maybe starts and stops and maybe just, has really struggled with that over the years, share this with them. I hope that it could be a really good and godly encouragement for them. And just speaking of that, I don't typically do this, but I would love to just kind of close this workshop in a little prayer for us. Lord, thank you so much for just bringing this information to my mind and just giving me the words to say on this workshop today, Lord. I'm just thankful that we can speak to the truth and not believe the lies of the enemy, even when it comes to something like this. And maybe you might be thinking, well, this isn't a big in the whole grand scheme of things. I truly think it is, because how we show up physically and how we show up mentally and emotionally really matters for our witness. And so I just pray that whoever is watching this live or watching the recording, that they would just feel encouraged that we can kind of take a step back and do some evaluating and make this work for us. And so I'm thankful that you've called me to this work, and I just pray that you continue to lead me in ways that I can serve you. We pray all these things in your name. Amen. All right, guys, thanks for just being here with me, and thanks for being on this mission with me. So if you have any extra thoughts or comments or questions that have been brought up here, I would love to just have a conversation with you in my DMs or in my email or whatever is best for you. All right, guys, I'll see you later.